Listen carefully. This is not coincidence. Heaven has interrupted your moment for a reason. You have felt it, the tension in your chest, the unease that won't fade, the quiet knowing that something unseen has been pulling your strings. You have been feeling drained, distracted, disconnected, and the enemy smiles when you question your strength. But tonight, everything changes. Heaven is sounding the alarm. Stop letting the enemy play you. You've mistaken mental fatigue for weakness, but it's spiritual warfare in disguise. The enemy's oldest trick isn't destruction, it's deception. He doesn't need to steal your crown. He convinces you to lay it down. He whispers through exhaustion, through toxic voices, through self-doubt. He twists truth until you forget the power that lives inside you. But the Spirit of God is breaking through the noise right now, saying, "Wake up. Remember who you are. You have survived attacks that should have ended you. You have walked through nights where no one knew the battles you fought in silence. Every tear you've shed in the dark was seen. Every sigh was recorded in heaven. The reason the warfare feels personal is because it is personal. Hell recognizes the threat you pose once you awaken. That's why you've been targeted, tested, and tempted to give up. But you cannot surrender to a defeated enemy. You are not losing. You are being refined. The confusion, the silence, the delays, they are the smokescreen before breakthrough. The enemy is terrified because you are starting to remember your authority. You are realizing that you were never meant to chase peace, you were meant to command it. You are remembering that when you speak with faith, mountains listen. The Word of God declares in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 10, verse 19, "Behold, I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you." That is not metaphor, it's a spiritual decree. You carry divine authorization. The enemy can threaten, but he cannot overpower what heaven has sealed. You were never the victim, you were always the vessel. The enemy's game only works when you forget your identity. But once you realize you have authority to trample over fear, over manipulation, over spiritual confusion, the game ends. Every day you wake up with the chance to take your power back. When anxiety whispers that you're losing, speak back. When temptation tells you to settle, resist. When guilt tries to remind you of your past, point to grace. The enemy plays chess with your emotions, but heaven already declared checkmate. You are not being punished, you are being positioned. Do not underestimate the power of awareness. The moment you discern the strategy, you disarm it. The lies that once held you captive lose their grip when exposed to truth. You are not the person you were 6 months ago. You've grown through the fire. You've learned the patterns. And now, you will not be played again. You will walk in wisdom, in calm, in divine strategy. This awakening comes with responsibility. The moment you reclaim your authority, you must guard it. Guard your thoughts. Guard your peace. Guard your time. You are stepping into a higher dimension of clarity where you will no longer react emotionally but respond spiritually. You will speak less but carry more power in your words. You will recognize spiritual traps before they form. The same energy that once fueled anxiety will now fuel discernment. And you need to understand, heaven backs your decision. The moment you say, "Enough," angels move. The moment you declare, "I take my power back," the atmosphere shifts. because when a chosen one remembers who they are, hell trembles. You are not ordinary. You are divine strategy, wrapped in human skin. God is whispering, stop playing small. Stop giving the enemy permission through fear. Stop letting pain rewrite your purpose. Every distraction trying to drain you is an indicator that you're on the right track. The resistance proves the importance of your calling. What you've endured is not wasted, it's training. You've been learning the enemy's playbook so you can expose it for others. This is your wake-up call. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop saying maybe later. This is the moment. Step into your authority. The world needs the version of you that's no longer manipulated by emotion, but led by revelation. If this message stirs something inside you, don't let it pass. Take action. Like this message. Share it with someone who needs to break free. Subscribe if you haven't already. Stay connected to the flow of power that reminds you who you truly are. When you align with this word, you align with heaven's timing. Now breathe. Feel the weight lifting. This isn't motivation, it's divine intervention. Heaven is calling you out of confusion, out of delay, out of fear. The enemy no longer gets to play with your emotions, your peace, or your purpose. You are reclaiming your God-given power right now. Comment the number 777 below as a prophetic declaration that you're done being played and ready to walk in divine authority. You felt it before, the quiet manipulation of your mind, the subtle tug pulling you away from peace, the whispers that tell you you're not enough or you'll never change. That's the battleground the enemy prefers most, your thoughts. He doesn't always roar. Sometimes he plants ideas. He moves in suggestions, in delays, in moments of weariness when your defenses are low. The most dangerous attacks are not the ones you see coming, but the ones that feel like your own voice. The manipulated mind is the enemy's favorite weapon. He can't steal what God has given you, so he convinces you to hand it over willingly. He twists your reflection until you no longer recognize the warrior inside. You begin to internalize false identities, the broken one, the forgotten one, the failure, the disappointment. But those labels are lies forged in hell. Every single one designed to keep you from walking in your true authority. It begins subtly. One bad day leads to a week of overthinking. One disappointment turns into self-doubt. Then the cycle forms a loop of guilt, fear, and procrastination. You say, I'll pray later, and later never comes. You think, I'm not worthy, and suddenly your prayers feel small. But that's the trick. The enemy cannot defeat you in battle, so he distracts you in thought. He convinces you to fight imaginary wars in your mind while he steals your time and focus. The Spirit of God is saying to you now, take every thought captive. Not every emotion is truth. Not every thought deserves your agreement. There are ideas that enter your mind like seeds, but not all of them are divine. Some are planted by the adversary to grow weeds in your confidence. Every time you agree with fear, you water that weed. Every time you rehearse pain, you nourish the lie. But when you declare truth, when you speak light, when you silence deceit, you reclaim your mental territory. We find in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 10, verse 5, we demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. That verse is the blueprint for mental freedom. You are not helpless against your thoughts. You are the gatekeeper of your own mind. The moment you stop entertaining every whisper of insecurity, the enemy loses his foothold. You can't control what thoughts come, but you can control which ones stay. Speak truth out loud. Interrupt the pattern. When your mind says, "I can't," respond with, "I already have victory." When anxiety says, "You're alone," remind it, "God is with me even now." The manipulated mind thrives in silence. It feeds on your refusal to confront it. That's why isolation feels heavy. It's not just loneliness, it's spiritual warfare disguised as apathy. But even your silence can shift once you invite light into it. Begin to speak scripture. Begin to speak gratitude. Those words change the frequency of your atmosphere. The enemy can't dwell where worship exists. Your thoughts are not just private, they are spiritual territory. What you dwell on, you empower. What you declare, you manifest. If you dwell on fear, fear multiplies. If you dwell on truth, peace expands. It's time to cleanse your inner world. You can't be free externally while you're imprisoned internally. The mind is the gate through which either heaven or hell flows into your life. Choose your gatekeeper wisely. Understand this, the enemy fears your clarity. Confusion is his weapon, because confusion delays obedience. If he can make you question your purpose long enough, he can make you miss divine timing. But the Holy Spirit is restoring your focus. You are being recalibrated. The fog is lifting. What used to drain you will no longer have access to you. What once confused you will now become a lesson you use to free others. There is a version of you the enemy hoped would never awaken, the one who knows how to think from victory, not for it. The one who prays with precision, not panic. The one who discerns the difference between conviction and condemnation. That version is emerging now. You are starting to see the manipulation for what it is, a strategy, not truth. You are no longer falling for the same lies packaged in new words. Remember this, the greatest spiritual warfare is fought not in loud battles, but in quiet choices. When you choose peace instead of panic, truth instead of fear, focus instead of distraction, you are already winning. You are rewiring your spiritual atmosphere one decision at a time. The enemy tried to invade your thoughts, but you are rebuilding the fortress of your mind with scripture, discipline, and divine awareness. The manipulated mind cannot coexist with a renewed one. And from this moment forward, every thought that enters your heart must bow to truth. The enemy's strategy has always been the same: divide, distract, and drain. You have to understand this. Darkness studies you. The adversary doesn't attack randomly. He observes your habits, your emotions, your cycles. He knows when you're most tired, most vulnerable, most uncertain. He doesn't need to overpower you. He just needs to make you forget that you already carry power. The enemy has no authority over you, only influence. He works through suggestion, not sovereignty. He can whisper, "You're not enough," but he can't make it true. He can delay, but he can't deny what heaven decreed. He can tempt, but he cannot take what belongs to you unless you hand it over. That is his game: persuasion disguised as oppression. Think about it. How many times have you been on the verge of breakthrough, and suddenly everything felt heavier, the distractions multiplied, the doubts intensified, and people around you acted in ways that stirred your emotions. That's not coincidence. That's calculated interference. The enemy knows that if he can distract your focus, he can delay your destiny. He knows if he can make you tired, he can make you quiet. But chosen ones cannot afford silence anymore. It was proclaimed in the first letter of Peter, chapter 5, verse 8. Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. That verse is not meant to scare you, it's meant to awaken you. Lions do not roar to hunt silently, they roar to create fear before the fight begins. The enemy roars to make you retreat before you realize he has no real teeth left. His roar is an illusion, his power a shadow. Once you stand firm, his influence fades. You must see his strategy for what it is, a psychological operation aimed at your peace. He targets your self-worth because he can't touch your salvation. He attacks your emotions because he can't remove your anointing. He stirs conflict in your relationships because unity threatens him. Every attack you face has a pattern, and once you recognize that pattern, you strip him of control. The enemy studies your weaknesses, but underestimates your resilience. He attacks the same areas repeatedly because they once worked, but this time, you're not the same person. You've learned. You've matured. You've seen behind the curtain. Every failed attempt from the enemy becomes evidence of your growth. You're no longer reacting, you're discerning. No longer panicking, you're praying. No longer fearing, you're fighting with spiritual wisdom. Remember, warfare isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle, a sudden mood shift, a wave of discouragement, a distraction that seems harmless but consumes your time. The enemy hides in routine. He thrives when you move through your days unaware. But when you wake up spiritually, you begin to see patterns others ignore. You start noticing the energy that shifts in conversations, the heaviness that tries to attach itself before an important decision. That awareness is your weapon. You are not powerless in this battle. You have divine strategy. When you begin to guard your peace like treasure, the enemy loses leverage. When you respond with prayer instead of panic, he loses momentum. When you choose stillness instead of fear, he loses access. Every small victory in your daily thoughts builds an unshakable fortress around your spirit. Do not be surprised that you've been under such intense pressure. Pressure reveals value. The more you carry, the more the enemy fears you. He wants you distracted because your focus is dangerous. When you move with clarity, you become unstoppable. When you walk in authority, you become untouchable. And when you remember your divine identity, the entire plan of darkness collapses. You've been through enough cycles to recognize what's happening now. You're not cursed. You're called. You're not under attack. You're under training. The enemy wouldn't waste time on someone who isn't a threat. The resistance is confirmation you are stepping closer to purpose. And now, this is the part where you take your stand. Speak out loud. Declare your awakening. You're not just listening to another message. You're responding to a divine alert. You are telling heaven, I'm awake. I'm ready. I see clearly now. The enemy has played his last move. The strategy is exposed, and you will no longer be moved by shadows. Comment, I see clearly. Say it as a declaration, not a sentence. Every time you write it, you're rejecting confusion. You're reclaiming your spiritual vision. You are saying to both heaven and hell, I'm not blind anymore. I discern, I understand, and I walk in truth. The game ends when you choose awareness. And awareness has now found you. When you write these words, you are declaring that your spiritual vision is restored. You are no longer confused or manipulated by lies. You see every scheme of darkness for what it is: temporary, powerless, and already defeated by divine truth. By commenting, I see clearly. You activate a prophetic act of agreement with heaven. You are saying, I no longer walk in fear or blindness. My eyes are open. My spirit is alert. And I stand in full awareness of who I am in God. When God holds a mirror before your spirit, you finally see what the enemy has tried so hard to hide. You see not the version that pain created, not the image shaped by people's opinions, but the divine reflection of who you truly are. That reflection is powerful. It is the one thing darkness cannot counterfeit. For years, the enemy has blurred your vision, twisting your perception of self, making you believe you were too flawed, too late, too broken to carry the light of heaven. But the moment you look into the divine mirror, clarity replaces confusion, and truth silences every lie. You were not born to blend in. You were born to stand out with the glow of divine purpose. The world has told you to dim your light, to adjust, to conform, but that was never God's instruction. The mirror of heaven does not reflect your failures or your past. It reflects your design, your divine DNA. The more you gaze into that truth, the more your spirit aligns with heaven's identity for you. That's why the enemy keeps trying to distort it. He knows that once you truly see yourself through God's eyes, he loses all power to manipulate your worth. He attacks your reflection because he fears your revelation. When you think you are weak, you shrink your authority. When you believe you are unworthy, you hesitate to act in faith. But when you realize that heaven's fingerprint is on your soul, everything changes. You begin to walk differently, think differently, speak differently. You no longer chase validation because you recognize that divine approval has always been yours. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah. Chapter 1, verse 5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. That scripture isn't just about Jeremiah, it's about you. Before you took your first breath, heaven already established your purpose. You were not an afterthought, you were intentional creation. The reflection in God's mirror shows not your mistakes, but your mission. Every scar, every lesson, every moment of silence has been shaping you for impact. Look deeper. What you see as weakness is actually divine refinement. The pain that made you doubt yourself was the very process that purified your discernment. The tears that fell in secret watered the soil of your future strength. You are not defined by what you went through. You are defined by who stood with you through it. The mirror doesn't show defeat, it shows endurance. It shows someone who refused to quit, even when everything screamed to give up. The divine mirror also exposes illusion. It reveals which voices never belonged in your reflection. Some people projected their insecurities onto you, convincing you to wear identities that were never yours. But the Spirit of truth removes those masks one by one. You will no longer carry the labels given to you by pain, family expectation, or rejection. You are not what they said, you are what He spoke. And when He said, "Set apart," that sealed your destiny forever. As you begin to accept this reflection, you'll notice something shifting inside. peace replaces striving. The need to prove yourself fades. You stop asking for permission to be powerful. You stop apologizing for your light. The mirror of God doesn't flatter, it transforms. It calls forth the real you, the one the world hasn't fully met yet. That reflection carries authority because it was born in revelation, not in approval. Every morning, heaven invites you to look again, not at your physical reflection, but at your spiritual identity. Speak to that reflection with confidence. I am chosen. I am equipped. I am enough. When you align your words with heaven's truth, you begin to manifest it in your life. The more you see yourself through the divine mirror, the less the enemy can distort your vision. Understand this: the battle for your reflection is the battle for your direction. If the enemy can make you believe you're unworthy, he can make you settle for less than destiny. But once you see clearly who you are, every counterfeit opportunity loses its power to attract you. You start to discern what aligns with your purpose and what distracts from it. That is divine maturity. Right now, heaven is holding that mirror before your heart again. Look into it and see strength, grace, authority, and divine light. You are not who pain made you, you are who purpose revealed you to be. The reflection is pure, the calling is real, and the time is now. Let the divine mirror remind you, you are already everything the enemy said you could never be. You are light in motion, purpose in form, destiny unfolding. Stand before that truth and embrace it fully. Because when you see what heaven sees, no earthly lie can ever define you again. You've forgotten something sacred, not because you are careless, but because the storms of life have made you focus on surviving instead of remembering. Deep within you, there's a vault of divine power placed there by the Creator himself. You once felt it as a child, before the world taught you fear, before disappointment dulled your wonder. It's the same power that whispers in your bones when you refuse to quit. When something inside you says, "There's more," that's the voice of heaven reminding you of what's still buried within. The power you forgot you had was never gone, it was only sleeping, waiting for this awakening. Life has tried to convince you that you are powerless. But the truth is, you were born with heaven's authority woven into your very breath. The enemy can touch your circumstances, but he cannot touch your core. He can delay your plans, but he cannot delete your calling. The moment you stop agreeing with defeat, your dormant strength begins to stir again. The Apostle reminds us in his letter to the Ephesians, chapter 3, verse 20, "Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us." Did you catch that his power at work within us? Not beside us, not around us, within us. The same Spirit that hovered over creation now moves through you. You've been carrying divine electricity in your soul all along. But the world told you to hide your light so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. Heaven never asked you to shrink, it asked you to shine. The world benefits most when you are fully alive. The enemy doesn't fear your prayer, he fears your remembrance. Because the moment you remember who you are, he loses his grip. You start to walk with authority again. You speak, and things shift. You pray, and the atmosphere bends to divine order. You step into rooms carrying peace like fire, and darkness trembles because it recognizes what you carry. That's the power you forgot. You had the quiet strength to alter the unseen, simply by believing. Think about how often you've underestimated your own voice. You've spoken words of kindness, forgiveness, or truth, and hearts have changed even when you didn't notice. You have released power every time you chose love over bitterness, every time you stood up after falling. Every act of perseverance was a declaration to the heavens, I still carry light. This moment is not about trying harder, it's about remembering deeper. You are not waiting for strength to arrive, it's already here. God doesn't empower you from a distance, He awakens what He already placed within. Every time you listen to truth, every time you turn toward light, you reconnect to that inner current. And now, as you stand at this turning point, imagine your spirit as a candle relit by divine breath. The flame doesn't need to be forced, it simply responds to presence. Let that be your call to awaken, to allow what's been dormant to breathe again. If this message stirs something within you, don't treat it as coincidence. Treat it as remembrance. Let your heart respond in its own way. Maybe it feels like a quiet nod. Maybe it feels like a tear. Maybe it feels like the urge to reach out, to share this moment, to pass the light forward. That's how power flows. It multiplies when it's shared. You don't have to shout about it. You don't have to prove anything. Just let your actions whisper faith. If a part of you wants to keep this fire alive, do what light naturally does, spread it. Let your next action, your next word, your next click be a gentle offering to someone else who's forgotten their own power. When you pass on what strengthens you, heaven multiplies it back to you. And as you do, stay connected to the source. Keep returning to this well of truth, not out of obligation, but out of hunger. Let this space, these words, this flow remind you that the power you carry thrives in communion. The more you stay connected, the stronger the current becomes. So before this moment fades, do something small but sacred. Touch the light, press like, share this flame, and subscribe if your heart feels drawn. Think of it not as an action but as a symbol, the fire in one heart reaching another. You're not following a page, you're following the pull of purpose. You're saying, keep the light moving. The flame is in your hands now. You can let it fade, or you can let it illuminate the path for others. If this message touched something inside you, let your spirit decide what to do next. Maybe it's to whisper a prayer. Maybe to share the light forward. Maybe to keep walking in quiet strength. Whatever you choose, let it come from love. Because love is the true reflection of power. You have not lost your fire. You've just been learning how to handle it. And now that you remember, the world will see a light it has been missing for far too long. The battle of the mind has always been the most dangerous one. Long before anything happens around you, it begins within you, whisper by whisper, thought by thought, lie by lie. The enemy does not need to chain your hands if he can convince your mind to stay bound. That's why you felt weary without knowing why. Tired even after resting. Restless even in peace. The battle has not been physical, it's been mental. But now, heaven is breaking the cycle. This is the hour to reclaim your focus. To break free from every mind game that has tried to silence your clarity. You were not created to live in confusion. You were never meant to dwell in anxiety. Your mind is meant to be a sanctuary of divine strategy, not a battlefield of endless noise. The voice of God thundered in the book of Romans, chapter 12, verse 2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing and perfect will. Renewing your mind is not a single moment, it's a lifestyle. Every time you choose truth over fear, you renew it. Every time you forgive instead of replaying the pain, you cleanse it. Every time you speak peace when chaos tempts you to react, you strengthen it. Your mind becomes what you allow to grow inside it. The enemy wants to turn your imagination into a weapon against you. He plants scenarios that never happen, doubts that don't belong, and worries about things you can't control. But you are learning to recognize the pattern. The spiral begins when you agree with the lie. The breakthrough begins when you interrupt it with truth. Breaking free from mental warfare starts with awareness. You must become the observer, not the prisoner, of your thoughts. Watch them pass without letting them command you. When fear speaks, listen for faith behind it. When doubt shouts, whisper hope louder. The mind is powerful, but the spirit within you is stronger. You've been walking through a fog lately, decisions feeling heavy, emotions unclear. That's because confusion is a spiritual tactic. The enemy knows that if he can cloud your judgment, he can delay your obedience. But heaven is clearing the air now. You are receiving divine clarity. Thoughts that once tangled your peace are losing their grip. Every stronghold of overthinking breaks when you stop rehearsing pain and start meditating on promise. Every night you spent analyzing what went wrong will soon be replaced by mornings filled with quiet focus. The storm in your head was never meant to last forever. It came to show you where your walls were weak, so you could rebuild them with truth. When you learn to take your thoughts captive, your emotions follow. The same mind that once fed your fear will become a garden of peace. You will think with purpose, speak with conviction, and act with calm authority. You will no longer be driven by what-ifs, you will move by what is. So pause now. Take a breath. Imagine your mind as a battlefield covered in fog. Then see light breaking through it, steady, warm, unstoppable. That light is truth reclaiming territory. Every thought of fear burns away. Every lie loses weight. You begin to remember what freedom feels like. Your peace will not come from escaping the mind, but from mastering it. You will no longer be played by the same thoughts that once controlled you. You are learning to lead them. You are learning that stillness is not weakness, it's strategy. The renewed mind sees clearly, walks firmly, and trusts completely. This transformation won't happen in one day, but it begins right now. In this moment of awareness, heaven is resetting your perspective, recalibrating your focus, rewriting the narratives that once bound you. The battlefield is no longer your mind, it is your victory ground. And, as a prophetic act of agreement, comment the number 505 below. This number symbolizes divine release and the freedom to step into renewed purpose. When you write it, you're declaring, "My thoughts are free, my mind is clear, and my peace is permanent." Comment 505 when you write 505. You are declaring that the cycle is broken. You are no longer a prisoner to overthinking or fear. You are stepping into divine release, your thoughts aligning with peace, your heart anchored in truth, your spirit walking free. 505 is more than a number, it's a spiritual key. It unlocks new clarity where confusion once lived. It symbolizes restoration of mental strength and spiritual balance. You are saying, "My mind belongs to God now, and no lie can dwell here anymore." By commenting 505, you activate prophetic agreement. You're telling heaven that you're ready to think differently, to live consciously, and to rest peacefully. It's your way of sealing this victory, one simple act that echoes through eternity as freedom regained. There is a moment in every warrior's journey when they realize the battle was never just outside, it was within. You have reached that moment. This is where you learn to wear your peace like armor, to walk through the fire without letting it consume you, and to recognize that divine protection is not always loud or visible. It is quiet, constant, and alive within your spirit. You have walked through storms that should have shattered you, yet here you stand. That is no accident. Every bruise on your faith has become a seal of endurance. Every scar, a mark of divine craftsmanship. The enemy hoped those scars would remind you of pain, but heaven designed them to remind you of survival. You are still standing, and that means your armor has been tested and proven. The truth is, you were never unarmed. You simply forgot what weapons you carried. Peace is not weakness, it's steel forged in stillness. Righteousness is not fragility, it's divine protection that cannot rust. Faith is your shield, truth is your sword, salvation your crown. Every piece fits perfectly because it was tailored by your Creator. You were never meant to fight naked in spirit. You were meant to walk clothed in divine strength. Heaven speaks clearly through the writings in the book of Ephesians. Chapter 6, verse 11, "Put on the full armor of God, so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes." Those words are not poetic, they are instruction. The armor is not an accessory, it's survival. When you wake up each morning and choose peace over panic, truth over illusion, forgiveness over resentment, you are putting it on piece by piece. The battle might be spiritual, but your preparation is practical. Peace is your helmet. It guards your mind when anxiety tries to break in. Righteousness is your breastplate. It shields your heart from bitterness and guilt. Faith is your shield. It extinguishes fiery doubts that fly in when hope runs thin. The Word of God is your sword, sharp, precise, able to cut through deception with a single verse of truth. Every time you speak truth aloud, every time you refuse to agree with darkness, you are swinging that sword. You've spent too long underestimating what you carry. You thought peace meant retreating, when in reality, peace is the weapon that disarms chaos. You thought gentleness was weakness, when it was authority in its purest form. The enemy doesn't know what to do with a heart that refuses to fear. He loses control when you respond with calm instead of rage, when you stand firm instead of running. The armor is not heavy because it was designed for you. What feels heavy is the weight of carrying emotions that don't belong to you: fear, shame, doubt. Once you set those down, the armor feels like breath. It was never meant to restrict, it was meant to protect. When you learn to live in it, the battle no longer defines you, it refines you. You might not see it, but you are radiant when you walk in divine armor. Heaven sees a warrior wrapped in light. Every arrow of accusation breaks before reaching you. Every shadow of fear dissolves as it nears your presence. You are covered, shielded, anointed. The same Spirit that clothed David with courage and Esther with grace now surrounds you with divine resilience. But armor alone is not enough. you must also learn to rest within it. Too often, you wear strength but still carry tension. You speak faith but keep worry in your pocket. Let it go. You are safest not when you fight hardest, but when you trust deepest. Trust transforms your armor from defense to declaration. It tells the world, I know who protects me. Each morning, imagine fastening truth around your waist like a belt that holds everything together. Speak scripture aloud as if sharpening your sword. Whisper gratitude to steady your shield. Breathe peace into your mind until it replaces confusion. This is how you fight, not with panic, but with posture, not with rage, but with readiness. And remember, this divine armor does not make you untouchable, it makes you unbreakable. You may still face hits, but they will never destroy you. You may bend under pressure, but you will not collapse. Every battle becomes another layer of spiritual strength, another testimony written into your armor's shine. There will come a day when someone near you will ask how you survived, what should have broken you, and you'll smile, not with pride, but with understanding. You'll say, I stopped fighting with my own strength. I put on what heaven gave me. And in that moment, your life becomes a living revelation of divine endurance. So stand tall, armored one. You are not just protected, you are prepared. Let peace wrap around you like light, and righteousness guard you like flame. The war may continue, but your victory is already written. You walk clothed in something the enemy can neither steal nor destroy, the full armor of God. There comes a moment when running is no longer an option, when the only way forward is to turn around and face what once controlled you. You have reached that moment. For too long, you've been a puppet pulled by invisible strings, fear tugging at one hand, guilt at the other, pain whispering commands into your ear. But now, something inside you has snapped those strings. You no longer move by manipulation, you move by revelation. The enemy's greatest illusion is control. He never had ownership of your soul, only influence over your emotions. He cannot create, so he corrupts what already exists. He cannot command your destiny, so he distorts your direction. For years, he's disguised suggestion as destiny, making you chase shadows, replay memories, and call them punishment. But heaven is opening your eyes now. You see the puppeteer behind the curtain, and when you see him, he loses his hold, as was spoken in the sacred texts of old. In the book of James, chapter 4, verse 7, submit yourselves, then, to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. That scripture doesn't tell you to run, it tells you to resist. To resist means to stand, to anchor yourself in truth, to no longer be moved by fear or emotion. Resistance is not rebellion, it's alignment. When you stand in your God-given authority, the enemy recognizes he no longer has permission to play with your peace. Facing the puppeteer is not about anger, it's about awareness. You confront what once manipulated you, not to fight for victory, but to stand in the victory already won for you. You look into the lies that once shaped your reality and say, I see you now. You expose manipulation with light, and light dismantles illusion. Every fear you've carried has been sustained by agreement. The moment you stop agreeing, it loses life. When you believed you were small, that lie fed on your doubt. When you believed you were unworthy, that lie gained strength from your guilt. But when truth enters the room, every counterfeit collapses. You cannot be controlled by what you refuse to feed. The puppeteer operates through patterns, cycles of distraction and delay. You begin something with passion, but discouragement follows. You take one step forward, and suddenly a whisper says, "You'll fail again." That's the pattern. But now you're learning to recognize it before it unfolds. Awareness becomes your weapon. Discernment becomes your shield. You no longer react, you respond. Confrontation doesn't always look like shouting at darkness. It can look like silence in the face of chaos. It's when you refuse to engage old arguments. When you no longer answer to the name the past calls you by. When you choose peace instead of proving yourself. That's confrontation in its highest form, standing in light while darkness exhausts itself trying to provoke you. Do you understand how powerful that is? The puppeteer thrives on reaction. Every emotional outburst, every moment of self-doubt gives him energy. But your stillness starves him. Your peace is rebellion. Your calm is warfare. When you stop dancing to the rhythm of manipulation, the strings fall. You don't need to fight to prove strength. You need to stay rooted in truth. Truth fights for you. Truth dismantles deception like dawn, erasing night. You are not in bondage. You are in awakening. You are realizing that the control the enemy pretended to have was borrowed from your belief. You believed the lies long enough for them to look real. But revelation shatters the illusion. This is what divine confrontation looks like, not rage, but revelation, not violence, but vision. You don't need to fear what's behind you when heaven walks before you. Every manipulation loses momentum when you walk in alignment. The enemy cannot lead a heart that listens to the voice of God. Think of your soul as a theater where two scripts have been competing for your attention. The enemy's script says, "You'll always be broken." God's script says, "You're being rebuilt." The enemy's script says, "You've lost too much." God says, "Nothing wasted, all restored." The puppeteer wanted you to keep performing the wrong story. But now you hold the pen. You write the next act with truth. You stand now in a holy confrontation, not trembling, but steady, not confused, but clear. You have faced what used to control you and discovered it has no real power left. What remains is strength, focus, and authority. The puppeteer has lost his strings because you no longer move for applause or fear, you move for purpose. And when you walk forward from this moment, you'll notice something sacred. The same hands that were once bound now rise freely in peace. The same voice that once spoke in fear now speaks in faith. The same mind that once doubted now discerns. You are no longer the played, you are the player. Guided by heaven's hand. The battle is no longer about escape, it's about embodiment. You are not running from darkness, you are shining through it. You've confronted the puppeteer, and in doing so, you've remembered your true self, chosen, equipped, unstoppable. When the storm rises, your first instinct is to run or hide, but storms, in the language of heaven, are never punishment, they are purification. You have been standing in the middle of one, trying to understand why things keep shaking, why people keep shifting, why silence has become your daily companion. But storms are not meant to destroy you, they are meant to reveal the voice that speaks within them. The enemy wants you to hear only noise in the storm: doubt, panic, fear, self-blame, He wants to overwhelm your senses until you mistake chaos for truth. But God often hides his clearest whispers in the thunder. He knows that when the noise outside gets loud enough, the distractions fall silent, and your spirit begins to listen differently. You stop hearing through fear, and you start hearing through faith. As the prophet Elijah spoke, as recorded in the first book of Kings, chapter 19, verse 12. And after the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. That gentle whisper is what you've been missing. It doesn't demand attention. It invites stillness. It doesn't shout. It settles. The voice of God doesn't compete with chaos. It waits for you to quiet your soul enough to notice it. You've been waiting for thunder, but heaven has been waiting for your surrender. When you stop trying to make sense of the storm and simply listen, you'll hear it, the voice that says, "You're safe now. Keep walking. I've got you." There's a calm inside the storm, a sacred eye where time slows and peace breathes. That's where the voice of God lives, not outside the chaos, but within it. He doesn't always calm the storm immediately, because sometimes he's using it to calm you first. You can't silence the wind around you, but you can anchor your soul until the noise no longer owns you. You've been trained by noise notifications, opinions, expectations. The world taught you to react, not to rest. But heaven teaches you to hear. You begin to recognize that not every sound deserves your attention. Some noises are meant to distract, others are meant to test your focus. The voice of God never competes, it simply waits for recognition. Every time you pause in prayer, every time you breathe instead of panic, every time you refuse to argue with chaos, you tune your soul back to divine frequency. That's why the storm is allowed not to destroy your faith, but to fine-tune your hearing. God doesn't need to speak louder. He needs you to listen deeper. Sometimes the storm is not around you, but inside you, waves of old pain, guilt, or memory rising again. That's where his whisper does its deepest work. You expect a rescue, but he brings revelation. You want escape, but he offers endurance. The storm breaks, not when it ends, but when you realize it never had authority over you. And when you finally find that inner stillness, you notice something powerful. The very storm that once terrified you now becomes the rhythm that carries your faith forward. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start saying, "What is this shaping in me?" That shift right there is transformation. When you can hear the whisper in the storm, you stop reacting to life's noise and start responding to divine timing. The same storm that once made you doubt will soon become the testimony that strengthens others, because you will be able to say, "I heard him there in the chaos, in the fear, in the silence." You are learning that faith isn't proven by calm days. It's proven by what you do when the wind howls. You're learning to worship in the rain, to stand in the flood and still raise your hands. Heaven doesn't need your perfection. It needs your permission to speak peace into your panic. Now you know why the storm came. It wasn't to destroy you. It was to awaken you. You needed to discover the strength that only stillness could reveal. You needed to remember that even in thunder, the shepherd still speaks. You have been listening long enough to the wrong voices: fear, guilt, self-doubt. It's time to tune them out and let the whisper of truth guide your next step. That whisper is gentle but unshakable. It carries direction, healing, and courage. Comment, "I hear him." When you type those words, You're not just repeating a phrase, you're declaring alignment. You're saying, I'm done letting fear be louder than faith. I recognize the voice of my Creator in the middle of my chaos. Those 3 words unlock a silence that strengthens you, because now, even in the storm, you listen differently. There are doors you've been walking through without realizing they were left wide open, doors that allowed worry to enter freely, habits to return quietly, and pain to visit uninvited. You've prayed for peace, but sometimes peace requires closure. This is the moment heaven whispers, no more back doors. Every heart has entrances, pathways through memories, emotions, and relationships. Some of those pathways lead to healing, others to confusion. The enemy studies which doors you never locked, which voices you still answer to, which moments from your past still have a key. He doesn't need new access when old wounds remain open. But God, in His mercy, is teaching you to seal what no longer serves your spirit. The Word of God declares in the book of Proverbs, chapter 4, verse 23, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. That verse is not about isolation, it's about intentionality. To guard your heart is to protect your focus, your purity, your peace. You can love people deeply and still close access to chaos. You can forgive fully and still refuse to reopen the door to dysfunction. Guarding your heart does not make you cold, it makes you clear. You've grown enough to know that not every knock deserves an answer. Some opportunities look familiar because they're repetitions of old lessons. Some friendships sound comforting because they echo old patterns. But you are not who you were when those doors first opened. You've changed. You've healed. And that means your boundaries must evolve too. It's easy to think that closing doors means failure or loss. But in truth, it's holy maturity. Even Jesus walked away from certain places once His purpose there was complete. Some chapters end not because of rejection, but because of completion. And when heaven declares something finished, no amount of nostalgia should reopen it. There are memories you keep revisiting, hoping they'll feel different the next time. But memories are not meant to be lived in, they're meant to be learned from. Every time you replay pain, you give the past a voice in your present. It's time to change the locks. Replace guilt with grace. Replace nostalgia with newness. Replace access with alignment. You have permission to protect your peace without apology. You have permission to stop explaining your boundaries. You have permission to prioritize the voice of God above the noise of approval. The ones meant to walk with you will recognize your peace as sacred, not selfish. Sealing the back doors means learning to say no without guilt and yes without fear. It means refusing to be emotionally available to everything that demands your energy. Your heart is a sanctuary, not a waiting room for temporary visitors. You decide who enters, how long they stay, and under what spirit they're allowed to speak. It's not bitterness, it's stewardship. The more you honor what's inside you, the more heaven trusts you with greater responsibility. You cannot pour new oil into cracked vessels. You must let God repair what's been leaking your strength. Every sealed door becomes a declaration that says, I choose peace over patterns, purpose over people-pleasing, destiny over distraction. And when you do this, when you start closing what needs to be closed, you will feel the shift. Peace will no longer be a visitor. It will become a resident. Clarity will no longer flicker. It will burn steadily. Your spirit will stop bracing for impact because you'll finally understand not everyone deserves a key. If this word finds you, it's not a command, it's an invitation. You stand in a sacred hallway right now, holding the keys to every door of your inner world. Some doors glow with light. Others linger in shadow. Heaven isn't forcing your hand, it's simply illuminating choice. The act of closing one door becomes the birth of another. So take a deep breath and imagine it your hands on the handle. Your heart steady. You close the door gently. Not with resentment, but with reverence. Behind it are the echoes of old pain, expired seasons, unfinished conversations that no longer need closure. Ahead of you is the stillness that only surrender brings. And when you are ready, let your next action, however small, be symbolic. Touch the light. Press like. Share this reflection. And subscribe if your spirit desires to keep walking these halls of truth. Think of it as lighting a lantern in a corridor of transformation. Each gesture a whisper to heaven saying, I am ready for new doors. It's not about numbers or screens, it's about connection. When you carry this light forward, you participate in divine circulation. Someone else will see your small act and feel encouraged to close their own back doors. And in that quiet ripple, heaven's restoration expands. You're not closing doors in fear, you're opening space for glory. You're not walking away from the past, you're walking toward wholeness. Every lock clicks in harmony with heaven's rhythm. This is not the end of something, it's the sacred beginning of peace that stays. There comes a point in your awakening when life no longer feels random. Every choice begins to carry weight. Every moment feels like a crossroad. You start to realize that your future is not shaped by wishes, but by decisions. This is the battlefield of choice, the sacred ground where destiny and deception meet. Every day you wake up to war, not against flesh or people, but against indecision, distraction, and delay. Heaven whispers one direction, while fear pulls in another. The enemy doesn't always shout, disobey. He whispers maybe later. But delay is his most elegant weapon. It looks harmless, yet it steals years. You've felt it, the tension between what you know is right and what feels easier. The temptation to postpone obedience until the timing feels convenient. But spiritual growth never happens in convenience. It happens in commitment. Every act of obedience, no matter how small, moves the unseen. When you choose alignment, heaven moves on your behalf. The Word of God declares in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 30, verse 19, This day I call the heavens and the earth as witnesses against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life, so that you and your children may live. That command is not about punishment, it's about power. God places choice in your hands because love without freedom isn't love, it's control. Each decision you make is a seed. Some grow into peace, others into regret. But even regret can become revelation when surrendered. The battlefield of choice is not about perfection, it's about awareness. You are not being tested to fail, you are being trained to discern. Every temptation that tries to pull you away is an opportunity to strengthen your decision-making spirit. Every distraction is a mirror asking, do you still remember what you're fighting for? And if you do, then you already know how to answer. Sometimes the hardest choices are not between good and evil, but between good and God, between what looks right and what is right for you. The enemy loves offering almost blessings, things that glitter like destiny, but carry the fingerprints of delay. But when your spirit stays anchored in prayer, discernment grows sharper. You begin to sense which doors open from heaven and which from habit. You've been here before, standing between peace and pressure, between calling and comfort. Each time you choose what aligns with your spirit, the grip of fear weakens. Each time you choose purpose over pleasure, you reclaim another piece of destiny. The enemy loses power the moment you choose consciously instead of emotionally. And yet, choice often feels heavy because it demands surrender. Surrendering your will doesn't mean losing control. It means trusting divine strategy more than your own logic. God sees from eternity what you see only in moments. What feels like loss now may be preservation. What feels delayed now may be divine timing protecting you. Understand, this indecision is a decision. Silence is a response. To stay still out of fear is to let the wrong voice win. The battlefield of choice does not reward hesitation, it rewards faith. Every yes to God creates ripples that echo beyond you. You are not just choosing for today, you are setting patterns for generations to follow. Even the smallest decision toward obedience opens doors you cannot yet see. When you choose forgiveness over resentment, peace begins to flow in places conflict once lived. When you choose prayer over panic, divine perspective replaces confusion. When you choose integrity in silence, heaven records it as victory. You've spent too long worrying about choosing wrong, but God's grace is not fragile. Even if you misstep, He redirects. Even if you fall, He restores. The key is movement. Heaven blesses those who act with faith, not those who wait for perfect conditions. The battlefield of choice is not about making one grand decision, it's about 1,000 small ones that align with truth. Each choice is a brushstroke painting the picture of your destiny. Some strokes are messy, some precise, but together they form the image heaven always intended. So, when the next decision rises, whether to speak or stay silent, to move or wait, to hold on or let go, pause and listen to the whisper behind your heartbeat. Peace is your compass. Confusion is not. God never rushes you, but He always calls you forward. You will not always choose perfectly, but you can always choose faithfully. You can always say, even if I stumble, I choose to follow the light. And that single decision, repeated daily, becomes the anthem of the awakened. The battlefield of choice may be fierce, but you are no longer fighting alone. Heaven stands beside you as witness, teacher, and guide. Each decision you make in truth strengthens your armor, sharpens your discernment, and confirms your identity as one of the chosen. Something sacred happens when obedience meets timing. Heaven moves. You have walked through long seasons of silence, praying for a sign, wondering if your faith has gone unnoticed. But what you didn't see was how God was arranging backup behind the veil. You were never abandoned, you were being aligned. There are angels assigned to every chosen one. They don't just stand beside you in victory, they walk with you in process. Every tear you've shed became a command in the spirit realm. Every whispered prayer released movement you couldn't perceive. Heaven has been preparing reinforcements, waiting for your next step of faith to activate what's already on the way. You've carried heavy burdens, thinking no one saw, but heaven saw. Every quiet act of obedience, Every time you did right when no one was watching. Every time you forgave when it hurt, all of it built spiritual authority. The delay wasn't denial, it was preparation for partnership. Heaven never sends backup to a battlefield without a warrior ready to receive it. The ancient words recorded in the book of Psalms, chapter 91, verse 11 declare, "For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways." That's not a metaphor, it's a decree. The protection surrounding you isn't random, it's orchestrated. Some accidents didn't happen because heaven intervened. Some opportunities reopened because divine timing said, "Now." The battles that once drained you have drawn angelic reinforcement to your side. You're no longer fighting alone. You may not see the movement, but you will feel it soon, the quiet rearranging of circumstances, the unexpected favor, the sudden clarity that feels like peace dropping into your chest. That's heaven's backup in motion. You've prayed for strength, and God sent strategy. You've asked for help, and heaven dispatched assistance. The silence you endured wasn't absence, it was angels taking position. Heaven responds to alignment, not emotion. You cannot manipulate divine timing with impatience, but you can accelerate it through obedience. Every time you walk by faith instead of fear, you send a signal to heaven, "I'm ready." When heaven sees readiness, reinforcement rushes in. Some of the people who left your life had to leave because divine resources were waiting for space. Sometimes heaven removes distractions before sending reinforcements. What looked like rejection was actually redirection. The vacancy in your life is about to be filled not with chaos, but with clarity. You're entering a season where things will start to make sense. Doors will open that logic can't explain. You will find yourself in the right place at the right time, saying words you didn't plan, but that heaven already scripted. You will realize that what once felt random was precise orchestration. The waiting taught you trust. The silence taught you strength. And now, as you move forward, heaven matches your pace. Every step in obedience triggers a response in the unseen. You may think you're walking alone, but you're marching with a legion of light. You've prayed, "God, send help." And He has. Not always in the form you expect. Sometimes it's an idea. Sometimes it's a person. Sometimes it's divine energy rising in your spirit after you thought you were done. That's heaven's language of help. It always arrives disguised as growth. And here is the mystery. Heaven's backup doesn't just defend, it multiplies. The same angels assigned to guard you also clear paths, amplify your voice, and align hearts that will support your purpose. You'll begin to notice divine coincidences, timely encounters, restored opportunities, messages that confirm what your spirit already knew. You are surrounded by help, guided by purpose, and shielded by grace. You are not just protected, you are partnered with heaven itself. The reinforcements have arrived. The waiting is over. This is your confirmation that the next move you make will not be made alone. And as a prophetic act of agreement, comment the number 808 below. This number carries the vibration of divine alignment and infinite new beginnings. When you write it, you are saying, "Heaven has heard me. I am surrounded, strengthened, and ready for the next divine move." Comment 808. When you write 808, you are declaring that heaven's alignment is already active in your life. The number carries the sound of balance. What was scattered is being reordered. What was delayed is catching up. and what was lost is finding its way home. 808 represents infinity wrapped in divine purpose. It is the symbol of cycles completed and new beginnings protected by grace. By commenting it, you are saying, I am in sync with heaven's rhythm. I trust the unseen hands guiding my path. And I no longer fear the silence between blessings. As you type 808, imagine it echoing through the heavens like a seal of faith. It's not superstition, it's agreement. You are aligning your will with divine timing, affirming that angels move, doors open, and your next step is covered by eternal light. There is something sacred about restoration. It doesn't just give back what was lost, it transforms what was broken into something unrecognizably beautiful. You have been walking through a long season of subtraction. People left, opportunities dissolved, time slipped away. And yet, in the silence of that loss, heaven was preparing a recovery greater than what was taken. You were not being emptied for punishment, you were being cleared for replenishment. Restoration begins quietly. It doesn't always come in a flash of miracles, but in subtle moments where peace returns without explanation. It's when laughter finds you again after months of numbness. It's when you wake up and realize you're no longer carrying what once consumed you. That is restoration, not loud, but lasting. Heaven doesn't just return what you lost, it restores who you became in the process. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms. Chapter 23, verse 3, He restores my soul. He guides me along the right paths for His name's sake. That verse carries a deep truth. Restoration begins in the soul before it ever manifests in the natural. God restores your peace before He restores your possessions. He repairs your clarity before He reopens your doors. What you thought was delayed was actually divine pacing, God healing you so that when the blessing returns, it doesn't break you again. Reclaiming lost ground is not about going back, it's about moving forward differently. The ground you're about to walk on will not resemble the past, it will be richer, stronger, safer. You will not repeat old cycles because you have outgrown them. The lessons you've learned in loss have become your boundaries in restoration. Every area the enemy stole, time, confidence, love, opportunity is being rewritten under divine law. The same ground where you once wept will soon witness your rejoicing. Every no you endured will reveal its reason. You will see how delay protected you, how silence built strength, how heartbreak trained discernment. Nothing was wasted, everything was repurposed. Restoration does not mean you get back the same thing, it means you receive what truly belonged to you all along. Sometimes God allows things to leave so He can return them purified. That relationship, that dream, that idea, it may not look the same, but it will feel lighter, freer, more aligned. Heaven restores by refinement, not repetition. You are entering a season where what was taken will return multiplied, not by luck, but by law. The spiritual principle of restoration demands it. You've sown in tears, now you'll reap in clarity. The very areas where you once felt barren will produce fruit faster than you can imagine. You'll look around and realize that everything you thought you lost was actually being preserved. When the enemy tried to break you, he didn't know he was building you. When he stole, he didn't realize he was planting the seed of repayment. Every disappointment was a deposit into the bank of divine compensation. Now, heaven is releasing the interest all the time. Faith and energy you invested when nothing seemed to change. And restoration is not just for you, it's through you. You will carry healing into the lives of others who are still standing where you once stood. Your words will become medicine. Your story will become light. You will speak, and broken things will begin to mend, not because of perfection, but because your voice carries proof that God restores. Look closely. Signs of restoration are already appearing. You've started smiling again. Hope feels less foreign. You find yourself believing in the future without forcing it. That's restoration taking shape. God rebuilds slowly so that it lasts eternally. And when the fullness of restoration arrives, you won't be overwhelmed, you'll be ready. Because now you understand that restoration is not a gift to consume, it's a calling to steward. You are not just receiving, you are becoming a vessel of restoration for others. Every healed part of you will serve as a bridge for someone else to cross. So, breathe deeply and step forward. The ground beneath you is holy. It remembers your tears, your prayers, your persistence, and now it blooms with evidence that heaven never forgot. The God who restores is not far. He is moving in every detail, returning not just what you lost, but everything you were meant to carry beyond it. Your season of reclaiming has begun. Nothing missing, nothing wasted, everything redeemed. Restoration is not a rush, it's a rhythm. Every day brings a small return piece. Joy, confidence. You are rebuilding brick by brick. And heaven celebrates each step you take toward wholeness. You are no longer the same person who broke, you are the one who healed. Restoration has changed your vision, refined your heart, and anchored your soul in wisdom that cannot be shaken. Now, your life becomes evidence that God restores fully. You will speak from experience, love without fear, and walk carrying the fragrance of renewal. Every scar now glows with divine redemption. There is a sacred shift that happens when your eyes begin to see what others cannot. It's not arrogance, it's discernment. A divine awareness that no longer lets darkness hide in plain sight. You've prayed for understanding. But what heaven is giving you now is sight, spiritual eyesight, sharp enough to recognize traps before they're built. You've always sensed things deeply, felt energy shift before words were spoken. For years, you may have seen this as a burden, but what you once called sensitivity, God calls discernment. He gave you eyes that pierce through disguise, a spirit that detects deception without proof. You are not paranoid, you are prophetic. What others dismiss as intuition is actually the Holy Spirit sharpening your perception. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah. Chapter 33, verse 3. Call to me, and I will answer you, and tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know. That invitation from heaven still stands. It's the call to see beyond the surface. Discernment is not about suspicion, it's about revelation. It doesn't make you judgmental, it makes you responsible. Once you see, you can no longer pretend not to. You begin to understand people's hearts beyond their words, motives behind their kindness, and purposes behind your own trials. Discernment is the light that exposes manipulation before it reaches your door. It's the inner nudge that says, "Don't go," even when the opportunity looks golden. It's the still whisper that tells you, "Wait," when everything in you wants to rush. The enemy's most dangerous weapon is disguise. He appears as comfort when he intends compromise, as blessing when he plans bondage. but discernment unmasks him before he speaks. This is why your peace has been so violently attacked, because peace sharpens perception. A chaotic mind can't discern. The enemy floods your world with noise to blur your vision. But when you protect your peace, you protect your sight. Silence becomes sacred space, where heaven downloads instructions that logic cannot produce. God is giving you spiritual eyes for the next level, eyes to recognize opportunity without greed, warning without fear, and timing without pressure. You will begin to notice patterns faster, to sense false connections before they drain you, and to distinguish between seasonal help and permanent alignment. Discernment is not about knowing everything, it's about knowing enough to obey. You won't always understand why God says no, but soon after, you'll see the protection behind it. You won't always see what's next, but you'll feel when something's off. That feeling is not random, it's revelation. Some people in your life were never enemies, they were lessons. Discernment helps you honor them without reattaching. It lets you love wisely without losing energy to what's not aligned. It allows you to bless from a distance, pray without bitterness, and guard your heart without closing it. You stop reacting to people's behavior and start discerning their assignment in your story. The anointing to discern is also an invitation to maturity. Heaven doesn't reveal what you're not ready to handle. When you receive discernment, you also receive responsibility to intercede. Not gossip, to warn. Not condemn. Revelation without compassion becomes weaponized knowledge. But revelation with love becomes spiritual authority. This gift will change how you see everything. You'll no longer measure success by noise, but by peace. You'll stop chasing opportunities that don't carry divine fingerprints. You'll know when to speak and when to stay silent, when to fight and when to stand still. Discernment becomes your compass, your radar, your invisible armor, and you will start noticing a new kind of clarity, truth that flows effortlessly, signs that confirm decisions, divine coincidences that reveal unseen orchestration. You'll walk into rooms and feel spiritual climates shift. You'll meet people and sense whether their words carry light or shadows. This isn't superstition, it's awareness. It's walking in tune with heaven's frequency. As this gift deepens, it will not isolate you, it will elevate you. Those who once misunderstood your quietness will soon recognize it as wisdom. Those who dismissed your caution will witness the fruit of your foresight. You will not need to explain discernment. Your peace will prove it. Discernment will keep you safe, aligned, and effective. It will prevent wasted time, unnecessary heartbreak, and spiritual exhaustion. It is the unseen gift that multiplies everything visible. You are being entrusted with this sight because heaven knows you will use it to protect, not to boast, to build, not to judge. So guard your eyes and trust your spirit. What you see in this season is not imagination, it's invitation. Heaven is teaching you to see as He sees, to perceive the truth beyond illusion. And once you see with those eyes, you can never walk blind again. Discernment is not a spotlight, it's a candle, steady, humble, and pure. It doesn't blind others, it simply illuminates the path meant for your feet to walk. You will never fear deception again. Your spirit now sees clearly, guided by divine wisdom that exposes darkness and leads you safely into destiny. There is a moment in every chosen one's journey when the crown finally fits, not because the battles have stopped, but because your spirit has learned to carry the weight of glory without trembling. You have fought through doubt, stood through storms, and now heaven places upon your head what was always yours: authority, peace, and command. This is the season where you are not only chosen, you are crowned. Crowning does not come through applause, it comes through endurance. You wore pain like a cloak, and yet you never let it define you. You learned that humility and power can coexist. The same tears that once fell in weakness now glisten as anointing oil upon your spirit. Every loss that humbled you has become a jewel in your crown. Every prayer that felt unanswered now shines as wisdom within it. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 14, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden." That light is not external, it's the radiance of authority glowing from within. You are no longer walking in borrowed strength, you are walking in divine command. When you enter a place, peace follows. When you speak, truth carries weight. When you move, heaven adjusts the atmosphere. This is what it means to be crowned, not for vanity, but for victory. The enemy once mocked your silence, thinking it was defeat, but silence was your preparation ground. While others rushed, you listened. While others fought for position, you fought for purpose. That stillness has built something unshakable inside you. Now, when you speak, it won't be noise, it will be decree. Your words will no longer explain, they will establish. Being crowned for command doesn't mean control, it means alignment. It means walking in rhythm with heaven's timing, ruling not by dominance, but by discernment. Your crown is not decoration, it's delegation. You are heaven's representative on earth, carrying divine order into every space you step into. And yet, your crown isn't made of gold or jewels, it's made of moments. Every time you chose compassion over anger, another gem was placed. Every time you forgave instead of retaliating, the metal was refined. Every time you loved, despite rejection, heaven adjusted its fit upon your head. You didn't earn it, you grew into it. The weight you once felt as burden was actually preparation for balance. The heaviness taught you how to stand tall without pride and bend low without breaking. Your authority now flows from humility, your power from peace. The true crown is not seen, it's sensed. And now, as the light begins to rise in you, others will be drawn not to your title, but to your calm. People will feel safe in your presence because you've conquered yourself. You no longer need to prove your worth, you embody it. You don't have to chase influence, your spirit naturally commands it. This is what divine leadership looks like. Take a moment now and imagine your crown not as metal, but as light forming above you, glowing softly. It doesn't shout its existence, it simply shines. Every pulse of that light says, "You've overcome, you've endured, you are ready." And if these words echo something familiar in your heart, it may be because your crown has already begun to settle. Touch the light, press like, share this flame, and subscribe if your soul desires to keep walking this illuminated path. Let it be an act of reflection, not obligation, a gentle raising of your torch so others can find their way home too. When you pass the light forward, you are not promoting a message, you are extending a kingdom. Your gesture becomes prophecy. Someone else in darkness will see your act and remember their own forgotten crown. That's how heaven multiplies light through willing hearts. not forced hands. And as you linger in this sacred awareness, pause to leave your imprint here. Comment something simple, something from your spirit, a word, a flame emoji, a whisper of gratitude. It's not for attention, it's for alignment. It's your way of saying, I wear my crown with humility and walk in divine command. Let this be your moment of recognition, not by the world's standard, but heaven's. You are no longer in waiting, you are in ruling, not over others, but over the chaos that once ruled you. The crown you carry is invisible but undeniable, a sign that you have mastered the storm and now command the calm. So rise, crowned one. Walk gently, speak wisely, shine freely. For the light you carry is not just your own, it's heaven's response to your endurance. The crown you wear is not for decoration, it's a declaration that you've survived every storm meant to silence you. Now, your presence speaks what words never could: authority, peace, and unwavering light. Walk in it gently. Let the crown remind you daily that leadership is service, and power is peace. You are crowned not to rule others, but to bring heaven's calm wherever you stand. When light awakens in one's soul, it never stays contained. It ripples quietly, powerfully across every life it touches. What began as your private awakening is becoming a movement, a chain reaction of hearts remembering who they are. You thought you were walking alone, but heaven was forming an army through your obedience. The ripple of your rise is the evidence that your transformation was never just about you. Every choice you've made in alignment has echoed beyond your sight. The peace you protect becomes contagious. The faith you practice becomes a pattern for others to follow. Without preaching, you have preached. Without trying, you have inspired. People are watching how you rise, not for perfection, but for proof that it's possible. And in your quiet persistence, they are finding courage to rise too. According to what is revealed in the book of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 16, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. That light is your legacy. You do not need platforms to release it. It moves through your presence, your integrity, your forgiveness. Each time you choose peace over pride, a ripple begins. Each time you respond with kindness when judgment would be easier, a wave spreads further. The kingdom expands not through noise, but through reflection. You were never meant to be a monument, you were meant to be movement. Monuments stand still, admired, but silent. Movements live active, ever growing, fueled by purpose. Your story is no longer a secret, it is seed, and seeds, when planted in surrendered soil, multiply beyond their origin. Every person you've touched, every heart you've encouraged, every soul that found strength through your endurance, they carry a piece of your light now. Some of them you'll never meet, yet they will remember a word you spoke, a gesture of grace, a moment when your faith made theirs possible. That is the ripple of divine influence. You once questioned why the pain was necessary, but now you understand it made you relatable. People don't follow perfection, they follow authenticity. Your vulnerability became your power. Your scars became maps for others to find healing. The cracks in your story allow the light to pass through. And through those openings, others find their way. The ripple of your rise is not loud. It moves through whispered prayers, through conversations, through choices no one sees. Heaven amplifies quiet obedience far louder than public performance. You are affecting destinies simply by being faithful. And the beauty of this ripple is that it's unstoppable. You cannot trace how far it goes. Someone in another city may feel encouraged today because of a story you shared last year. A single act of forgiveness you offered might soften a heart that will one day forgive someone else. The light never returns void. You are becoming a beacon, a living reminder that darkness cannot dominate where awareness exists. You were once the seeker. Now you are the signal. People drawn to your peace will ask how you found it. And your answer will not be a speech, it will be your presence. Your life will quietly say, I rose because I remembered who I am. Every ripple carries heaven's signature. The same spirit that lifted you is now flowing through you. It will reach homes, nations, generations beyond your visibility, but never beyond God's design. You are part of something vast and eternal. The light within you is a frequency heaven recognizes. It calls to other lights still flickering in the dark. Do not underestimate the impact of your consistency. Revival doesn't begin with crowds. It begins with one steady flame refusing to go out. You are that flame. Your endurance has become evidence. Your peace has become prophecy. You are not just influencing, you are awakening. The same courage that once whispered to you in the valley now shouts through your life to others. Standing in shadow, you can rise too. And they will. Because you did. The ripple of your rise cannot be undone. You've become a mirror through which heaven reflects itself to the world. You are proof that transformation is possible, that pain can birth purpose, that surrender leads to strength. And as you walk forward, more will follow, not because you lead them, but because you illuminate the path they were always meant to find. Your rise was never solitary, it was a signal. Each step forward sent waves through invisible realms, stirring sleeping hearts to awaken. You are not a story being told, you are a movement unfolding. Now, your light carries legacy. Every act of faith becomes seed. Every moment of obedience, a spark. The world doesn't need your perfection, it needs your continued illumination. Keep walking, luminous soul. Let your radiance remind others that healing is possible, that love still wins. Your ripple has become a tide, and heaven smiles watching it grow. There is a throne that doesn't sit in palaces or temples, it resides within the heart of the chosen. It's not made of gold, but of surrender. It's not elevated by status, but by stillness. This is the throne within you, the place where heaven and humanity meet. You have spent this entire journey searching for power, only to discover it was never beyond reach. It was always inside the silent authority of a spirit aligned with God. The enemy tried to make you believe power came from control, achievement, or approval. But true dominion has never been about control, it's about peace. To sit upon your inner throne is to rule your atmosphere without raising your voice, to carry influence without striving for it. You no longer fight to be seen, you simply are. Presence becomes your power. Heaven speaks through the writings of the Apostle Paul in the letter to the Colossians. Chapter 1, verse 27, Christ in you, the hope of glory. That is the essence of your throne, the living presence of Christ within you. Glory doesn't descend from above, it rises from within. When you align your thoughts, emotions, and will with the Spirit. You sit in your rightful seat. You stop living as a reaction to life and begin living as a reflection of heaven. This is where all the striving ends. The running, the proving, the trying it all fades in the realization that the kingdom was never something to reach, but something to release. You are not waiting for heaven to open, you are awakening to the heaven already flowing through you. The throne within is not a distant concept, it's the consciousness of peace reigning over every inner storm. To sit there means you've learned to trust timing, to forgive yourself, to silence fear. It means you understand that stillness is strength disguised as surrender. You've stopped chasing identity through performance and started living from presence. The throne within cannot be shaken by circumstances. It's built on divine awareness. You may still face trials, but you will face them differently now. You will walk through chaos carrying calm, through conflict carrying clarity. The world around you may shake, but you will not, because you've discovered where your power truly lives. The same voice that calmed the seas now calms your thoughts. The same spirit that raised Jesus from the dead sustains your every breath. That realization alone is royal. You are not waiting to be crowned again, you already sit enthroned. The King of Kings chose his dwelling place, not in monuments, but in hearts like yours. Every prayer whispered, every tear surrendered, every moment of trust built this throne. It's the altar of your spirit, where peace reigns and wisdom speaks. You've learned through the fire that authority is not loud. It's the quiet knowing that you are guided, guarded, and grounded. You no longer seek signs, you are the sign. You no longer beg for miracles, you walk as one. The throne within is not about ruling others, it's about mastering yourself. It's about bringing every emotion, every thought, every fear under divine command. And when you live from that place, everything external begins to align. Relationships stabilize. Purpose clarifies. Opportunities unfold naturally. You no longer chase alignment, you attract it. The outer world mirrors the inner throne. The peace within becomes order around. This is what it means to be unplayable, to no longer be manipulated by external storms. The enemy cannot deceive a soul that sits in stillness. He cannot distract a heart that knows its source. You've reached the state of divine awareness where reaction ends and revelation begins. Your throne is not temporary, it's eternal. It's not built on seasons, but on truth. When life changes, it remains unshaken. When people misunderstand you, it remains steady. When the noise of the world tries to invade, it remains silent and radiant. You've become the calm in the chaos, the eye in the storm. And perhaps this was God's plan all along, not to make you powerful, but peaceful, because peace is power purified. You've taken back your authority not by force, but by faith. You've stopped letting the enemy play you because you've remembered who the true ruler within you is. You no longer pray from desperation, but from dominion. You no longer walk seeking affirmation, but giving it. You've transitioned from survival to sovereignty, from chosen to established. The throne within you is proof that heaven has taken its rightful seat in your being. So sit now in that awareness. Feel the stillness that rules louder than chaos. You are not striving anymore. You are reigning quietly, humbly, eternally. The journey that began with awakening now ends with ascension. The throne within is not just yours, it is you. You have returned to the center, the throne within, where power is peace and victory is rest. From this stillness, You reign not by effort but by essence, forever unshaken, forever aligned with divine authority. And now, chosen one, the story completes its circle. What began as awakening has become awareness, and what began as searching has turned into stillness. You have walked through revelation after revelation, stripped of illusions, refined by fire, and rebuilt in light. You are no longer merely surviving, you are reigning in quiet confidence. This is not the end of your journey, it is the beginning of mastery. You have seen your battles, your shadows, your doubts, and yet here you stand, not broken, but luminous. You carry the essence of heaven within you now. Every word you've heard was meant to remind you of your own reflection, powerful, chosen, and free. You've learned that the real victory was never about escaping darkness, but about learning to shine through it. Take a moment now and breathe. Feel the stillness expanding through your chest, the calm pulsing through your hands. That peace is your proof. The same light that led you here will continue to guide you forward, one whisper at a time. And if this journey has stirred something within you, let that stirring become an act of gratitude. Touch the light, press like, share this message, and subscribe if your heart desires to keep walking this path of truth. Think of it as lighting another candle in the temple of awakening, each flame helping someone else find their own. Before you go, leave your mark upon this moment. Comment something that feels true to your soul, a word, an emoji, a declaration. It doesn't have to be loud. Even a whisper can ripple through eternity. You are not the same as when you began. The awakening has become identity, and your story now lives as light in motion. Rise, reign. Remember, you were always the chosen one.